just love that riff. It's very funny because when I played it on a Strat, I used to play it very differently. I played everything like higher up. I used to do the, I guess to just to thicken it up. But on the Les Paul, it kind of works better if you play, this open kind of a thing. It's also a good test for a Les Paul to get both the neck and the bridge pickup. So you got to turn the neck pickup down to around 4 if the amp is crunching up. Because full up, it'll be like this. So when you back it off, you get this really nice sparkling clean, which is a product of that early wiring which they had in the early 50s Les Pauls. They called it 50s wiring these days. So the tone knob goes off one of the lugs. Now here's an interesting thing with that, because when you have this 50s wiring, normally the guitar would get a bit darker as you turn the volume down, but it doesn't in this case. Which is why all those old school guys with the vintage Les Pauls could get the guitars to clean up, pretty well into Raging Marshall stacks. Now the disadvantage is when you turn the tone knob down, you drop a lot of volume. Like say you're already around 3, you just want it a little bit darker, but it's going to drop the volume as well. So you have to compensate by turning it up. So it's a little bit of a juggle in that sense. But if you're not using the tone knob, it works beautifully. There. Now the bridge pickup on this guitar, I didn't want that. I want that little bit of a treble roll off when I, so like full up, you're gonna get that. So when you pull it back, it kind of takes care of that, And then if you want it still darker, you can just roll the tone off, and it doesn't take the volume down. So there's a lot of different sounds you can get from just the Les Paul into a crunchy Mars. Sunday Mars, someone said. Hilarious. The random guy in the comments says, I've been on a real Kansas Boston kick lately. Yeah, man, both great bands. Those bands named after US states had a real, Boston's a city. It's in Massachusetts. Sorry to be that guy. Had a real knack for writing crazy good. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's another band called America as well, which had some cool songs. But yeah, Boston, I used to have this greatest hits cassette, which Rajiv, the singer from Zero, and me used to crank it in the car all the time. So every time I listen to that album, I think of riding in the car with Rajiv, and we're like both. Well, he was a bit older, was around 4 years older than me. I was a stupid young kid. So anyway, so like this Les Paul's pretty nicely set up now because with that wiring mode, because they come with 50s wiring, and then you have to. Thoughts on John Petrucci? Well, funny thing is, I'm not a huge Dream Theater fan, but I did love that album where they did covers of Zeppelin and Elton John. I think they did some Kansas as well. They did a medley, one thing called the Big Medley, and then they did a Zeppelin medley, which was really cool, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think the album was a change of season. So that's pretty much the most I've ever listened to his playing. Apart from, there was another song that everyone used to love putting on at the time called The Spirit Carries On. It's a bit of a senti number. He plays some cool shit in that. So yeah, man, whatever I've heard of him, I like, but I haven't been in, like, it's, you kind of have to prioritize the music that you listen to these days, because I mean, there's so many things to do and so many different, everything's available to listen to if you want to listen to some old blues from the 1930s or something, that sort of thing. So kind of have to, say I like this more than that, and listen to that sort of thing. Please play the Black Dog riff. Sure. Fuck, there goes this some copyright shit's gonna go on, but whatever, fuck it. I always wondered how they all did the sync coming back in, and just before they come in, you can hear a click of the sticks. and you hear just one click and they come. I was like, that's impossible. How can you just hear one click and come in? But apparently they muted those clicks, those drumstick clicks. So if he was going like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, da, that sort of thing. So they would have muted the first two sticks. So you they kaka da 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 da. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, it's great. The cool thing is when you go, he he kind of speeds up or he slow. I think he speeds up. Yeah, he goes ahead of the beat and then he comes back and it's pretty cool because I hear sometimes people play that riff, they mimic that speeding up. Yeah. The thing is, it's going da-da-da-da. So if you look at where that this note comes in on the groove, so 1, 2, 3, da-da-da-da. It's on the one. Da-da-da-da. It's called rhythmic displacement. So every time you cycle that riff, that note lands on a different part of the groove. Pretty cool. I kind of use a similar thing when, like, I got that idea from that song, and then when we did a song called Lucy, which goes, and then it goes. So that's something like that, it's got like an odd number. I don't even bother counting it because we just feel it and you play it. So I think sometimes I stop to count stuff and it like can mess with my brain because I'm a dumb guy generally when it comes to these sort of things. I'm pretty good at feeling like odd rhythm and stuff, but if I can't feel it like deep down, then I have to resort to counting, which is then it kind of it always messes with my brain when I'm actually concentrating on what I'm doing. When I don't think about it and just let it, flow out of me, it kind of happen. But that's also another case for practicing. Because if the thing is, what you're doing when you practice, I'll tell you what happens. It's very simple. There's a reaction time in your brain from where you think of the idea and to where you can, play it on the. And suppose you'd hear a lovely lift. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. So then the time from being able to think about that and to play it has to be as short as possible. So you're kind of reducing that latency by practicing. That's all that's happening. So then when you go to play, you don't really have to have that lag time where you have to kind of think about, what you're doing because you've already practiced. It's already sunk in deep inside and then it works out very well. Serious question. People always say Les Pauls are really warm sounding, but every time I've played one, especially with those 50s PAFs, they were almost unbearably bright. It depends how you set your amp up, to be honest. I mean, your amp has a treble knob, so that needs to be set to a point. If you turn it down, then the guitar is going to be, dark to start with. What happened, I think, is a lot of the later Les Pauls that came out from, I think, the 70s onwards, they started putting hotter pickups in them. At the time, I don't think there were that many like distortion pedals and stuff like we have now. So they kind of wanted to hit the amps harder. So the kind of race became to get like hot ceramic magnet pickups. In those cases, you won't really hear all the, the chimey top end. But if you've got low output pickups, then you kind of have to, like with the volume and tone on full, it can sound a little bit piercing. So that here's the point. I don't think the volume and tone knobs were intended to be set on full. That's like a serious misconception we have these days. That tendency to go whack 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 and turn it up on full. Just back that off a little bit, man. Just turn that down to like 7 or something. I'm on the neck pickup now. It sweetens it up a little bit. It won't really take out all the, it won't make it dark. But if you want that, then just turn that tone knob down. So the same thing with the bridge pickup. Since I don't actively gig in New Zealand and I guess no movie session work likely in Bollywood, how do I make a living? Well, actually, I do gig here and I do movie session work remotely and I do mixing work remotely and I just did a music score. So it's kind of a bit up and down, but it's always, the bills seem to be paid, which is, I guess, something to be grateful for. Can I suggest decent pickups for a low end guitar? Any tips to make it sound better? Um, Low end guitar. Well, depends what guitar it is. You have to give me more information. Try to give me as much information as you can. I play this guitar, I play this amp, I play this kind of music. My drummer likes to smoke, all that sort of stuff. I'm just kidding about the last bit. Yeah, well, the good thing about the volume and tone controls is they come for free. So, you know, make a post rock album. Well, we actually kind of dabbled in that sound a little bit. If you listen to a song called Reconnaissance Mission on, I think, the last Analog Generation album, that kind of hints to that kind of a sound. I don't know, it's just something we were, playing around with in the studio. That song happened really quickly. It's like almost like it, took shape in a very few minutes. I had this guitar riff that tick 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 that starts the song, and that's all we had. And then I kind of had this bass line, dun, 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 which I, told Adi, do your thing with that riff. And then because the groove was like Renaissance Mission, that so we decided to have a bit of fun and call it Reconnaissance Mission. But that song was recorded on the second take, and what you hear on the record is pretty much what went down on that second take. There's only one overdub on that. Is at the end when those big distortion power chords come in. That I played on. I recorded that in New Zealand. It went to my brother's studio. He had a baritone guitar, and he was playing around with some models on that Kemper which he had just bought. I said, "Do you have a Soldano one on that?" Because at that time I didn't have my Soldano. So he said, "Yeah, we went through a few and I picked one." I said, "Cool, that'll do." And I told him, "Cool, we play those power chords." And he tried it a few times. He said, "Ah, it'll just sound better if you play it because you know that whole rhythm a lot better." So I said, "Fine, okay, give it to me and let me try." So I kind of did that, like did two takes and pan them left, right. So I think that's Jay's favorite moment on the album when those power chords come in. Though I think in retrospect I could have done a better mix. Maybe I should ask Zoran to do a remix of that song. Do a live along with my brother sometime. Yeah, man, I would love to, but the only thing is both of us are like dads, like pretty full on involved with the kids. So I'll probably see if we can do one from his studio. That'll be cool because he's got a electronic kit and stuff like that. So I'll ask him if he's up for it. I'll take some gear from my end as well, and then maybe see if that can happen. Who are my inspirations? Well, there's a nice interview I did recently, not recently, well, last year. Uh, this thing called a Chakkar. So if you search for that interview, I actually detailed my influences, and I kind of talked a little bit about what I got from each of those influences. So if I think that would be a much better answer than giving you like some random artists who I've been listening to all my life. Arnab says, I'm using an Ibanez going into a Zoom processor. I was thinking to upgrade the pickups. Um, well, if you do like how that guitar feels and sounds inherently like no fret buzz or anything like that, and you feel that you'd stick around with that guitar for a while, then yeah, sure, upgrade the pickups. And if you're doing that, then you might as well upgrade the electronics as well. Just change the pots and put a good capacitor in there. That won't really cost you that much more, but if you're doing the pickup thing, do that as well. Zoran wrote a song called "The Fate of Life" that's a staple on your playlist. That's cool. He wrote a Black Sabbath Blues song called "Bombay Rain," which I pretty much still think of as his song. So, or Fate or Life. Cool, I'll let him know. I wish he still made music regularly, but I guess you got to do what you got to do. He was kind of like when he came up with this whole ambient metal thing, he was one of the very few people in the world doing it at the time, and now it's a lot more popular as well. He's a pretty cool guy. He's opened for Miss Sugar, I think, and Carnival as well. Any advice for beginner guitar player? There's a nice video on the YouTube channel that you should check out. It's, I think, 10 things that I wish I knew when I started playing guitar. That's a good one to watch. So again, I could give you a cliff notes answer, but you could just go and check that video out whenever you, or just bookmark it now and keep it for later. It's kind of limiting also, just one guitar into the amp and nothing to fuck around with, no pedals. Though I do have a bit of the ambient shit that's on the studio rack, so that comes after the amp. Any new blues riffs I've been working on? Well, I don't really actively write blues riffs, but I like listening to a lot of older blues and figuring some of that stuff out. I'll show you a cool thing about the blues. There's something in the blues called a turnaround. So if you say in the key of E, now this is the turnaround where it goes to the 5, 4, and the last two bars. So that last two bars, you normally would have some or something like that, or that's a common one. So if you're doing that, you could do this. So all you're kind of doing is finding an E, whatever the root is. You take that dominant chord. So you've got your 5th, you've got the 7th, and you've got the 3rd. Now in that triad, if you don't have the 1, if you just have a combination of 3, 5, and 7, you can just chromatically move that down. Just 3 chromatic, and then play your root. If it does have like this, the root in it, you kind of have to leave the root where it is and move the other ones down. So 1 cannot move, but the 3, 5, and 7 can move. That sort of thing. So you find it anywhere. That's a nice one. You do that, I kind of learned that from a YouTube video. I was just searching for blues turnarounds, and that guy kind of gave a very cool, I forgot the name of the video, but he kind of explained it very simply. I was like, okay, that's what he do. So you can kind of do it anyway. But here's another nice one, which is not the 1, 5, 7. So you play the major 3rd. Now this would be you're playing the root, right? So that's like the flat 2. And you've got the 5. So it's kind of sounds pretty dark by itself. So you can so it's 4 on the E, 3 on the D, and 4 on the G. That sort of thing. How many guitars do I have in my collection? So let's see. There's one bass, which we need. It's a Squire jazz bass, but it's got that nice matching color head. So then the next one. So I'm just going in this direction. So that one is a Mexican road one, but it's got what do you call it? It's got 13 gauge strings and it's tuned down to C sharp. So that's like my baritone instrument for all the soundtracky stuff. Then there's a 62 American vintage reissue that would be from late 2000s. That's the one I just got work done on. This guy called Audi in Thane. He did a great job on it, man. Like spectacular job. He put in stainless steel frets, and those vintage strats have a 7.25, really curved radius. So they flattened it down to 12. Because the Les Paul and the Eric Johnson strats all have a 12-inch radius. So that is now a dream to play that guitar. Then there's the 3 Eric Johnson. So one is the black strat one, which is all black with Sir Michael Landau pickups. So even all the strats have Landau pickups in them. I think one has V60s or something. So that one is the E flat for Black Side Blues. So it's the 62. And then there are 2 EJs. One is SSS, one is HSS. Both are in standard tuning with 10 to 46. Then there's the Les Paul. Then there's an SG or 61 vintage reissue. There's an ES335 and Dan Electro 12 string Godin A12, which is an acoustic 12 string thing. Then there's a Godin nylon string. Then there's a Taylor, which is with got that Nashville tuning, which means it's like four of these strings are one octave higher, so it sounds very cool. And there's a Larive acoustic, which is the main acoustic, and then there is a Dobro, which was a gift from a friend of mine. And then in the cupboard, there are two more things, which are one is like a banjo and a guitar tuning, and the other one is this Dan Electro Baby Sitar, which is like a six-string sitar, but it's kind of I used it all over. Um, what's that song? Anesthesia, on the last album. Check that out. Um, do have I tried strats like Exotica? My friend Kush had an exotic. He had a Tyler as well. I've tried a couple of Sirs. Tom Anderson, I think Ehsan had a couple. Um, I still like the Fenders because I don't see anything wrong with them. First of all those guitars are really expensive, and I'm a cheapo when it comes to buying guitars. Like when I bought this one for around $3,000, I was like fucking freaking out because I never paid that much for a guitar. But I figured because I tried some of the cheaper Les Pauls, I found a couple of good ones. But I was like, you should just get And I found this one which was a used one. So normally they would be for around 5,000, new, and more like 3,000 used. And this is vintage, not vintage, but this used guitar shop in Japan called Ishibashi. If you ever want to become broke, go to that site. You'll end up spending all your money because they have some killer deals. They have like these old Japanese Strat reissues and stuff like that for like $600 or something like that. So if you ever want to buy a decent Strat, check out Ishibashi if you like want to do it on the cheap. So yeah, so the Eric Johnson ones kind of do the job for me. To be honest, you take any Strat and you get it set up really well by a good luthier who knows to do a good fret job. It's gonna play as good as any of those things. Now the only thing what you're paying extra is for like the way it looks, and I guess the wood sometimes comes into play. But you could get a good sounding cheap Squire as well. It's not impossible. Then you kind of have to be a little bit more selective because what you're paying for with those more expensive ones are the assurance that it's going to be a great guitar. So I'm guessing there's a lot of rejection of materials and stuff at those factories. So in any case, I like customizing stuff to my needs. So it can kind of be sad to like buy a Sir and then start chipping and chopping it. It's just cool to buy these used Eric Johnsons. I used to get them for like $1,200 when we used to go on tour of the States. You could find them all day for 12. Sometimes you'd find them for like $1,000 and stuff. And those are like great guitars right out of the box. I mean, I'm guessing if the Eric Johnson name's on it, it would be good. So then I would put the pickups I wanted, and to be honest, apart from the refret, there's nothing I've really done with them. It's just a matter of setting it up. And once you know to set up a guitar, then it makes life a lot easier. Would I be doing a mixing course on my own approach? Well, actually, I did that for the last album when I was putting the finishing touches on the album. I did I think 2 months of these lessons where every week we would take apart a song and I'd show you the mix and stuff like that. So maybe that should happen on the next album as well. What model of Les Paul am I playing? It's a custom shop. What do you call it? An R8, which is a 58 reissue. You can see that badge that they put on the. Anyway, so great sounding guitar, nice chunky neck, which I kind of like because the 58s and majorly the 60s they got much thinner necks. And I kind of like the slightly tubby neck because it kind of I don't know, it lets me anchor a little bit better on this. And again from Ishibashi, that's where I got this guy from. It came really quickly, in fact. I ordered it on Christmas Day last year and it got here in I think 3 or 4 days, which is pretty awesome considering how busy postage is at that time of the year. How would I define the genre I play? I don't really know, man, to be honest. The thing is, I like a ton of different music, so I don't really like the whole idea of genres. I think they were invented by marketing people and lazy people who don't really want to, like, actually listen to music for what it's worth. Because then you start putting it in boxes. I mean, what's the point of that? You know, I mean, you have Led Zeppelin playing a reggae song. Nobody told them, hey, you guys can't play reggae because you are not a reggae band. And just play what you want. So it's a similar thing. I have a whole ton of different influences, all the way from the blues to, classic rock to heavy metal and jazz and electronica and, ambient music and psychedelic music. I mean, music's beautiful, why the heck do you want to just limit yourself to just listen to everything? So I guess in that sense, I kind of know what I like. It's more an aesthetic than a genre, I would think, at least the stuff that I make, without sounding too, artsy about it. Um, I mean, I'm just glad people listen to it in the first place, because generally I make it for me, and the byproduct is people dig it, and sometimes I make it as a form of therapy for myself, just the creation of it, and it seems to work the same way for other people, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I'll always be, utterly grateful that that's even possible. Because it's all the stuff that I can't express in words. That's the, what comes out in, I'm much more comfortable expressing things musically than in, by speaking. I can write better than I speak. I think if I would actually write something, I would actually put a lot of thought into it and, arrange the words to actually make sense and have a bit of flow. Now when I speak, I just like start making jokes and, doing rubbish stuff, I guess. Um, how I played guitars for Pathan, I don't recall. I don't recall sending invoices with the film name Pathan, but I could be forgetting. I don't think so, though. Um, where in India did I get 13 gauge strings? Well, I live in New Zealand. But if you do want to get 13 gauge strings, it's not impossible to do in India because I used to order from Amazon all the time. Amazon US. I mean, you pay, for it. It's a question of, do you actually want 13 gauge strings or you want to buy what's readily available? If you want 13 gauge strings, you can get them. You can get anything you want. Are you ready to pay for it? So, I did do an experiment though with on that Strat with the 13 gauge strings with an unwound G and the wound G, and the wound sounded a lot better. The unwounded one was very like undefined sounding. It was almost like a cloud rather than hearing tang, and on that Strat you want to hear the attack and the note. So it's like when the wound string came on, it's like that image got into, HD focus. um, do I usually buy a guitar without trying it in person? I've bought quite a few of those because I think I can, tell from a lot from the pictures, and then I try to have a conversation with the seller where I ask them some questions like, is the neck straight? Have you ever had the guitar refretted? How long have you played it for? Are the pickups original? All that sort of things. And then generally most guys will give a description of, what it's about. But if someone's selling Fender, Eric Johnson Strat, mint condition, there's a very small chance that it's going to turn out to be a shit guitar. The thing is, most guitars will come in with a setup that's way out. And since I know how to set up guitars, it doesn't become an issue for me. And in case there's any kitch with the ports or something like that, I can fix that myself. So any, minor problems, I'll be able to fix it. Now, the only thing I won't be able to fix myself is the neck's gone warped or something like that, which is then, sorry, why I asked those questions. I asked like to send me pictures, like close-ups of the neck and stuff like that. So I kind of know a little bit about what to look for. So yeah, I don't really have a problem buying sight unseen. Worst case, I mean, if it's not really, Krang and stuff like that, then you can always sell it. I mean, if you buy used, you can kind of get close to your money back. Sometimes you can get more than your money back. Where can we get good Les Pauls and Strats in India? Well, actually, I look at eBay, Japan, and look at Ishibashi. It's a Japanese website. I would actually go through that because you can get some really killer deals. My friend Rudy Wallam from Soulmate, great guitar player. So I found this thing on Reverb. Um, it's a Japanese. It's made only for the Japanese market. It's kind of. It looks a little bit like that Pete Thorn model, but the body uses more closer to a Strat, and it's got the Strat headstock. Um, and on Reverb they were selling it for around $1,500, and um, I found it at Ishibashi I think for 800. And then I sent that link to Rudy, and they agreed to ship it to India. They normally use EMS. So it comes to your local post office, and then you pay the postman, I think, the customs. You could ask them to use DHL, because then DHL, I think, has their own customs clearance agent for which you then pay for. But they get that done, so you don't have to, worry. It just comes to your door and you pay them the GST or whatever. The funny thing is, if you are GST registered, and I believe if you pay DHL the GST, then you can claim that back. But if you do it at your post office, you can't claim that GST back, which I found rather weird. But well, that's how it is. Um, what am I looking at here? Can I play some Buckethead? I don't really listen to Buckethead, I'm afraid. Buckethead, Polyphia, and stuff. People keep thinking I listen to that sort of music, but I don't really. I'm more inclined to listen to like Aretha Franklin or something than Buckethead. Can I recommend me a good noise suppressor and fuzz pedal? Um, well, noise suppressor, I would kind of look at that ISP thing. I think my brother used to use that. It worked pretty well. I don't really use noise gates, so I don't really have any experience with those. Uh, but for a fuzz, the sleeper one is the full tone octave fuzz. I love that one because it's got two modes. One is the usual octave, that Hendrixy sounding thing, and the other one is if you just blow it open. If you run that into an overdrive pedal, it just so that's another thing as well. If you want like a really cheap way of doing a fuzz, take an EQ and push all the lows, and then run that into an overdrive pedal. Pull out some of the mids, boost the lows, and just check out the highs and stuff like that. It'll just get really fuzzy. And if you do the other way around, you pull out the bass and you push all the mid range. That sounds really cool as well. So just try putting an EQ in front of an overdrive pedal that you already have, and try that. And that's like the Sasta fuzz option. The issue with Japanese dealers is you get mega screwed with customs. Well, it's not the Japanese screwing you; it's your Indian government that's screwing you. So you got to pay the piper at some point, because if you look at it, if you're going to get the guitar through a dealer in India, they are going to pay the customs and they'll charge you for that as well. So you're getting bumped either way. The other option is buy a flight ticket to Japan, stock up on the guitars, and come back and say these are my guitars which I took to Japan. I'm joking, by the way. Is $100 a lot for rich Indians living in the US? I don't know. I don't know any rich Indians living in the US. All my friends are like poor like me. Any upcoming album in 2023? Well, hopefully. I'm pretty sure we'll put something out. One live album for sure will be out early next year. And then maybe another studio album, hopefully. You got your Japanese RG. Yeah, man. Those early Ibanez, I remember like they used to be really popular with players when I bought my first Strat, and they looked cool. You know which guitar looked cool? I think there was a John Petrucci Ibanez model which had some really cool graphic on it. It was black and it had like a blue, green, red, like some faces kind of a thing. That used to look really cool in the guitar mags. I remember liking that. You which are the other signature ones? I mean, the Steve Vai one, of course. Then there was a Reb Beach one. There was a Paul Gilbert one with the F holes. You know what I'll do the next weekend? I should pull out some of my old guitar mags and we can go through them together. But I thought I'll do this today. I might as well do it now since there are a few of you online. I found this. I went to my parents' house today for Christmas party. The food was like, I'm still recovering from lunch. But I found this old Case Logic with my old CDs. So let's check out what I was listening to. This is at the time of the first Black Star Blues album. So this would have been when I first moved to New Zealand around 2005, when I started working on Nights in Shining Karma. This is what I was listening to. I hope the camera can pick this shit up because it's. Oh, here we go. So this is some early Gary Moore, which is a cool album called what's it? Back on the Streets or something like that. Yeah, Back on the Streets. But this is an amazing album. It's called Corridors of Power. It's some of the like most vicious strat playing. He's playing through a DS1 into a Marshall. Sounds glorious. Then this one, Victims of the Future, more of the same. And then these two albums, all the live versions are on this album. He plays one version of Shapes of Things, which is an old Yardbird slash Jeff Beck song on this, which is like, it's staggering. This is the later stuff. As you can guess, I was like a huge Gary Moore fan. This is a nice album as well. Where is it? The live blues one. Yeah, that's where the live version of Parisian Walkways is from. This was my first Gary Moore album called Ballads and Blues. There's a song here called Blues for Narada. That was my first, like, where I got my teeth into him. And I kind of based Blues for Gary on that song. So check that out. If you haven't. There's some cool stuff here. Kind of got a little bit electronic-y techno for a minute on that album. Then this was the latest stuff. But this album, Back to the Blues, there's a song on this called The Prophet, which is some of his most beautiful playing. And in the end, he kind of goes all Indian and everything. Like I was like, really? Okay, cool. This is a great album. This one, Ehsan turned me on to it, Ehsan Irani. There's a guitar player on this called Audley Freed. Brilliant guitar player. Who was also in the Black Crows when they did that album with Jimmy Page. So check this album out, Cry of Love. Cream, greatest hits. Bruce Baker, Gary Moore, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce. There's some killer guitar playing on this album. Paul Simon Graceland, classic. This is a dub version of Dark Side of the Moon called, the cover's lost, but it's called Dub Side of the Moon. And the starting of Money, you know that loop, that tape loop they made, which is like all the sounds of money. These guys have put sounds of lighting up. You hear the flick of the lighter and that bong going blah 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 blah. And some guy coughing. Check it out. It's hilarious. Kate Bush, first album, which David Gilmour, I think, is the guy who got her a record deal. Brent Mason, amazing guitar player from Nashville. I got this CD at the, they have like a dollar store kind of a thing where what do you call them? Cash converters or something. I was there for like $2. I was like, I'll have that, thank you. Those are the days where I bought CDs. This is some random stuff here. Fleetwood Mac. I think this is all the stuff with Peter Green. And there's some Santana. B.B. King live with a Regal, great album. This is a lovely album. Paul Rogers, Muddy Waters Blues. This is the cover got lost by I did a printout and I put it there. This has got a wealth of guitar players. There's everyone from Trevor Rabin to Slash to Neil Schon and Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck's playing on like some 4 songs, which is killer. This is a nice one. Albert King, Mean Mean Blues. All the Guns N' Roses stuff. This is some stuff, I think Albert Collins, that Rudy burned for me when I first went to his house in Shillong. So I still have those CDs. Pat Metheny, Still Life Talking. What a lovely album. I have this on vinyl as well somewhere. GNR, these just got reissued. If you haven't checked out those extended bonus tracks and everything on these albums, it's pretty cool. Here's all the Jeff Beck stuff. This is Blow by Blow. Great album. This is all the stuff you have to listen to from Beck. Blow by Blow, Wired, Guitar Shop. There's a song from here called Where Were You that'll just make you cry when you listen to it. Either out of depression because you'll never be that good or because it's so beautiful. There's both ways. Then, what is this one? I think this one's just called, there's some title of it. This one's the one with Nadia on it. I think this one's called Who Else, if I'm not mistaken. Which is a lovely song called Angel on this. This is all these three albums. They came out really short. I think in the late '90s and early 2000s. This is a beautiful album, Scott Henderson Dog Party, where he just plays blues. Again, one of those albums that'll make you depressed for weeks. Some Van Halen, everyone knows what that's about. Some Extreme. This is a great album called Waiting for the Punchline. One of the best guitar sounds you'll ever hear on record. Like raw and just pissed off sounding. This has got some cool songs as well. Stone Temple Pilots, both those first two albums, 1984, iconic cover. Jackson Brown Running on Empty. Fuck, there's a couple of songs here um, which have David Lindley, who's an amazing lap steel player, among other things. He's a multi instrumentalist. Um, but listen to his playing on a song called You Love the Thunder. Beautiful. Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course. Texas Flood, Couldn't Stand the Weather, first two albums. Pink Floyd Division Bell, I love this album. And this Beatles Love, which was like a mashup kind of thing of their stuff. Pretty interesting. Hell Freezes Over. I used to love this cassette and I still have it. Thin Lizzy, Chinatown, Black Rose, Bad Reputation. All the later Lizzy stuff I kind of really like. This guy from Italy called Nicola Costa, I bought his album. I kind of really liked his guitar playing. And then there's some Muddy Waters, James Taylor Greatest Hits. This is George Martin In My Life. I bought the CD because there's a version of Jeff Beck playing A Day in the Life, which is just beautiful. This is some more stuff from Rudy. This is Sean Lane live Powers of 10, which I bought from him when he came to India. And he signed it for me. You can see 2003. That's when I met him. This is Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, Raising Sand. Uh, Rock Machine. At the time, these albums weren't out on CD, so Zubin Balapore took the original master DAT tape and he burnt them for me. What's this? This is the. What the heck is this? Oh, it's a Jackson Brown compilation. These are awesome albums. Jellyfish is a band, I think '90s band from somewhere in Cali, and this first album is called Belly Button, and this one is called Spilt Milk. Beautiful albums. Like the production in those are amazing. Blue Murder, the first John Sykes album after he left Whitesnake. Really cool. Whitesnake Greatest Hits. Coverdale Page, Steve Vai. See, you can make the connection between all these albums. Eric Johnson, I think it's the Stones, our Musicom, Venus Isle. I love this. This is my favorite Eric Johnson album. Joe Bonamassa, New Day Yesterday live. Check that out. This one, King's X, Dogman, Brendan O'Brien produced. UFO, Strangers in the Night, one of the best live albums of all time. Michael Schenker, Greatest Hits, kind of a compilation thing. AC/DC, Back in Black, can't get any more classic than that. Here we go. Here's all the Aerosmith. This is one 70s greatest hits. This is the 90s one. Def Leppard, Volt. Those days we were all about buying the greatest hits because we get like all the good songs on one CD. Aerosmith Nine Lives, a great produced album by Kevin Shirley, the same guy who does Bonamassa, but this was before he did all that. Soundgarden, Presidents of the United States. Spin Doctors, lovely band. Journey, Greatest Hits. I think there's very little left. We're kind of going to the end of this. This is a nice one. Tom Waits, Closing Time. Whitesnake, Live in the Heart of the City. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the greatest hits. And this is a gem. Chet Atkins, Mark Knopfler, Neck and Neck. So that is my case logic. You'll have plenty of this music to check out if you want to get into. There you go. How's that for influences? Because every one of those albums was hugely influential, which is why I bought them on CD. Let's have a look. Is there any way you can get my T-shirt? No, I checked out of the T-shirt business for now. It's a bit stressful. I mean, I'd rather make music. If you want to buy music, you can buy music. If you want to buy t-shirts, go to Levi's or whatever you get your clothes from. um, Boosting the mids on an EQ pedal is a standard trick to get a super tight metal chug. Yeah, but some people don't know about it, which is why I thought, I would kind of tell some people who don't know about it. What was my inspiration and thoughts behind writing The Universe Has a Strange Sense of Humor? That was written when I met my wife for the first time. So we got on really well, but at the time she was not single. And then she was single a bit later. Then it was cool. um, Someone called you a Choto Gorai sweet titoon yesterday. It means a sweet teddy. Awesome. Uh, I mean, you mean like sweet teddy bear. Tell them to watch that movie Ted. They'll get a better idea. uh, Gary Moore, Wild Frontier. Yeah, man, that was like a great album. A bit of the track, but do I listen to players like Julian Lage? I love him, man. He's a beautiful guitar player. I love watching his. They're so well shot. Also, all those performance videos on his YouTube channel. And Neil Felder, someone I have to check out a bit more. I think there's a new interview with him on the Cory Wong podcast, which is really nice. So I'm going to check that out. It's called Wong Notes, which is a hilarious title. Pretty awesome. I love checking that out. There's a nice interview with John Mayer. I mean, he asks really sensible questions. The stuff that like I would ask. So I get a lot of good information from checking that out. Yeah, maybe I should play some more guitar instead of talking so much. I read a cool comment a few months back. It's like talking about playing guitar, and it said the left hand is what you know and the right hand is who you are, which is kind of deep, but it makes sense, right? I'd love to know what you think about that. There's a blues guitar player called Philip Says. Yeah, man, he's awesome. I've been listening to him for I think since I moved here. So there's a guy who said, check this guy out. There's a nice like a three-way interview between Philip and this guy called Nick Segivny. I'm butchering the surname. And the guy from Kingtone Pedals. And they all talk about like how they got into Stevie Ray Vaughan and their approach to getting his sound and that sort of thing. So that's worth checking. It's a bit like a very rough video, one of those Zoom things, but there's some really cool info in that in case you haven't checked that out. Am I playing at the Mahindra Blues Festival? No, I am not, but I should be in India not too long after that, around the middle of Feb. So we should be doing we're in the process of putting together some gigs around that time. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll show you some cool stuff reverb wise. So I've got a few different reverbs on the lexicon. I guess you should be able to hear this pretty clearly. Or maybe I'll turn it up in the mix just so you can hear it better. Yeah, so I guess you can hear that. That is the rich plate setting, which is one of the best sounding reverbs for guitar. And I haven't come across a pedal that sounds that good. I'll show you why it's actually so good. Like you go into a crunchy sound, listen to how that reacts to. It just kind of shrouds the note in this lovely cloud without getting in the way. But then when I back it off to clean, so that's the plate. Then there's another one called concert hall, which is a little slightly bigger thing, you know. So if you kind of want to kind of make the reverb a little bit more obvious, that's the one I'd be using. Then there's a smaller one called the tiled room, which is, so this one I actually mix it a little bit lower, so it's like a little bit more subtle. And then there's like a really long one. So that's more like a special effect kind of a thing. Or like, sometimes I want a guitar solo to be like really floaty, so it'll be like a, and this will normally have a lot of floaty things surrounding it. Now what happens with a reverb is the more stuff you add to the mix, that reverb tends to get covered up. So in the case the track is already really swirly and ambient, and I want the guitar also to be that way, then this is the kind of thing I'd. And there's another one from the Eventide as well. Let me see if I can put that on for you. It's called Black Hole. Two more. Yeah, that's the one. So this is Black Hole. This is more like, a little bit more epic sounding. That sort of a thing. Let's look at some questions here. It'll be great to have a Black Sabbath Blues gig in Kolkata. I would love to actually do a Black Sabbath Blues gig in Kolkata, but the only thing is usually the venues in Kolkata don't really have budgets to fly us in. So that becomes the problem. If we lived in Calcutta, I'm sure we'd be gigging a lot more. But if you live on the other end of the country, which we used to, then it becomes a problem. Any tips to avoid digital clipping with the UAD Apollo? Well, you use your ears and look at the meters. What happens is if you're using plugins, like stacked one after the other, and you're adding gain from each plugin, then there's a chance you can get internal clipping between that. So then the textbook rule becomes like you put the plugin in bypass and listen to how loud it is. Just make sure that the plugin's not adding any volume. Like you're using a compressor or something, it's tempting to kind of make it louder and you think, oh, it sounds better. But all it's happened is it became louder. You could have just pushed the fader up. So just keep that in mind. And then, you maintain headroom between plugins. I kind of, like when I send levels into the Apollo, I kind of aim to peak at around -10 or so, ballpark. I don't really go any higher. Like my guitar comes in, I think, around -15. And then when I put that LA3A compressor on, it bumps it up maybe like a couple of dB or so. And then, I just push up the fader till, it's loud. And then I look at the meters and make sure it doesn't clip. Is there a standard frequency bandwidth for a reverb on guitars? Well, usually you kind of tend to avoid the lows. So normally on a reverb, what I always do generally is I never put the reverb on the same track. It's always, by itself, which means 100% wet, on a separate, either an aux track, or in the case of the hardware, it'll come back on another fader in the mixer. So I tend to roll off the lows usually. So if you do that aux thing, you can just put an EQ that has a frequency meter on it, and you can see where the overall spectrum lies. And generally, for guitar, I'd shave off all the lows below 100 or so. Sometimes even like 150 and stuff like that, because the mid range is what I actually want to color with that reverb. And the highs again, if I'm using a bright sound, I'd roll off all that top end, either like with a shelving EQ or on the plugin itself or on the hardware. So if you're using a dark sound, and then you can use a nice bright reverb, that'll make sense. But generally avoid the lows building up on a reverb just to keep your mix clean. Marshall 800 versus 1959 versus Greenback. Well, the 800 and the 59 are amps, and the Greenback is a speaker. So that's not something to compare. But between the amps, I kind of like both. I know how to dial both in, so I could get along with both. I think if I was using pedals, I'd probably pick the 59. And if I was just plugging a Les Paul into the amp directly, I'd pick the 800 usually. Unless on the 59, it would depend actually how loud I could turn the 59 up. If I could turn it to full, I mean like past 6 on the master, because past 6 it doesn't really get any any louder, it just gets more distorted. So if I could do that, then yeah, I'd probably pick the Plexi. But in case the volume is an issue and I kind of need to keep the amp slightly low, I'd go with the 800. Could I please show you some of my delay patches for solo? Sure. So what I do generally is my default patch sounds like this. So that's a dotted eighth on one side and a quarter note on the other side. So the delay is coming from the Lexicon MPX1. The reverb was coming from the PCM 70. So that's my default patch. Now, if I was playing something cleaner and I wanted a little bit more modulation on those delays, then I have another preset on that. So you kind of get that chorusing. So again, that's usually timed. It gets a MIDI clock from Cubase. So that's a quarter, dotted eighth and a quarter note. But this one, on this modulation patch, there is a crosstalk between the delays. So like as each delay is repeats as feeding back, it feeds into the other delay as well. So you get this all these, it sounds pretty cool. And then lastly, I've got this slapback thing, which is it's a cool song called Jeff's Boogie. So those are my three basic delay patches. And if I need anything more specialized, I'd probably use Soundtoys Echo Boy in Cubase. What kind of reverb setting did I use on the Incense of the Nice and Shining Karma? It was one of those Cubase built-in reverbs. I just tweaked it till I didn't really have any plugins or anything at that time. All you hear on that album is just stock Cubase plugins. There may have been a delay. I think there may have been a stereo delay as well. Again, similar thing, that quarter and thing. But those Cubase delays, I would put an EQ after it and just take off some of the top end. A Plexi Hot Rod is like your dream amp. If your plugins even well, you need to try a real Plexi at some time at that point and like turned up loud. Then even a stock one will have enough gain once you get it up to that volume, because once you have that volume, you don't really need that much gain, because all that sustain is going to come from the amp. But what happens is that if your playing is not clean, then you'll be caught with your pants down. But if you can play cleanly, then it's a glorious thing, So it's like one of those separates the men from the boys kind of a thing. But it's a good learning thing as well, just to clean, because my first 800 was like my first good amp. And that kind of really got me to listen to how I was picking and stuff. I'm still working on it, but that was something like, oh, pay attention to that sort of shit. Um, which lexicon I answered that? You see your plexi at the back. Well, this one I used to use it for Blackstart Blues gigs. It's got a post phase and motor master volume at the back, but normally for gigs that would be on full. So when we played Mahindra Blues, I think I had that, and I wouldn't crank that one because it's a bass plexi, which means the sweet spot is somewhere around like 6.5, 7. The mids and the treble are cranked on that always, and the bass is like almost all the way off. And then um, the bright channel volume, I have it around like 6.5, 7. There's like you kind of do it by ear. You just hear it when it goes whoop past a certain point. Okay, leave it there, and then I hit the front end with pedals. So that's my deal with that amp. I could actually, yeah, I could actually. Why not? I'll show you what it sounds like. It's pretty easy to switch amps here. I just have this little switch box I made on top. Okay, that should be enough time. You can hear it warm up now. So it's a 50-watt bass circuit called in 1986, which is the circuit number, not the year. It came out in 68. That's what this one's based on. It's made by a company called Rocket Retro from St. Louis or Louis in the States. Really cool guy called Kevin. So if you're ever looking for a good plexi, he should be someone that you should look into. So now what I did is on a bass circuit, you tend to use the bright channel for guitar and the normal channel is pretty useless. So what I did is I kind of mucked around inside and I turned the normal channel into something like a lead circuit, which is the 1987. So it's not all the way there. It's like a very early 87. So that one you can run a little bit higher. So this one's almost on 10. Now if you were to run, do I have a cable? Let me just look for one. Oh fuck, one sec. I'll show you some really cool shit. Let's get really geeky. So this is a full-tone Ranger, which is a treble booster. So I'm going to put that in front of the amp and we'll put it into the bass channel first. You kind of hear that a little better of what it does. Let me make sure these cables go without tying myself up. Yeah. So this is pedal off. So this has got a bunch of settings. All it's doing is it's settling how much bass is going into the amp. So if I set it on full range, it's pretty fuzzy. Then it's got this low mids, which is like a bit of the bass taken off. Then this mids mode, which is really cool. Let me play a little bit on that mids mode. And the next setting is Range Master 1. Range Master was an early treble booster. A lot of the 60s guys like Brian May would use those. So this is like, I think, closer to an earlier Range Master. Now you hear the lows tightening up. Then there's Range Master 2, which is the next one. And normally with the Les Paul, I kind of really like this into this amp. finally, there's this setting called highest, which is almost like a lo-fi thing. You know what it sounds like? Is like that. And then you click it into the next one and go. Or put all the fuzz back. So in this, setting where all the bass is going in, it's going to sound a bit on that fuzzy side. Oh. And here's the cool thing, you put like a nice soaring delay on this fuzz. You know how people practice classical music compositions? I used to practice Gilmour solos like that. Uh, Sounds like the solo tone at the end of North Star. No, it does not. The North Star tone is a lot. It's a lot tighter than that. This is like on the verge of blowing up. You're probably listening to the delay, and that spaciness maybe giving the connection, but the tone wise they're nothing similar. So yeah, let's play a little bit more with that Range Master 1, I think. Yeah, so like all that Zeppelin stuff. Random guy is saying it's very late there, 1 a.m. Cool, man. I'll see you. Thanks for dropping in and hanging with us and blessing us with your comments. I should be looking at maybe another 15-20 minutes, and then I'm gonna call it a night as well. I'm a little bit older, I guess, so I need some sleep. Okay, so I'm gonna put that into the lead channel now. It's kind of a little bit more. So that's a little bit tighter to start with. So that's a nice, cool, like crunchy rhythm to it. My favorite era of rock music, probably the 70s, I would think. There's like so many of my favorite albums that came from that, and not just rock. I mean, jazz and pop music, and I mean, though counting the if I had to actually, I'll tell you what my favorite decade in music is. It's 1966 to 1976. If I could just shift the goalposts a little bit, that is my favorite era. So like all the later Beatles stuff from Revolver onwards to 76, I think, is like my favorite year in rock music. If you look at all the albums that came out that year, you'd be like, Steely Dan, Royal Scam, Eagles, Hotel California, Boston. There's a ton of cool shit that came out that year. Anyway, this is the pedal is a bit noisy as you can hear. It just goes. If you want to listen to what a Les Paul sounds like unplugged, it's almost like an acoustic guitar. I don't know how well that's coming through. Sorry for the tech question in the middle, but what if the tremolo arm broke off with the part stuck in the threading? What's the way forward? Oh fuck, you're fucked. It happened to me once in the middle of a gig. I was so sad because that happened because I had to use my backup guitar after that because there was a lot of that whammy bar stuff that I had to play in the gig, and luckily I had a backup guitar. But I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, that little piece of the trem arm sticking in. So what you have to do is you need to go to a really good metal working guy with that block. So you have to take out that block from the bridge and it'll have that little chunk stuck in it. So he has to kind of find a way of drilling into what's left of it and then, reversing it out. The other cheap option we used to do is like, don't try this though, is to take a flathead screwdriver with a hammer and keep that block in a vise and just go bam, bam till there was like a little dent on that thing, and then you'd kind of use it to turn it. But don't try that. That's the shit method. So you have to kind of drill into the block, into that whatever's left in the block, and then slowly ease it out. Slowly and surely you gotta do it. Sometimes if you're lucky, it'll break at like some jagged angle, and then you can put the bar in and like get those two things to kind of mate somewhat, and then, but I don't think you'll get that lucky. So yeah, it's basically bad news. You can see the yellow submarine picture there, anything from it. I love the movie. The movie is awesome. It's got more than the soundtrack on it. It's got like a really brilliant video sequence for Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on that, which is a trip and a half. If you haven't seen that movie, watch it. Get a nice print and watch that. But from the soundtrack, let's see. I mean, the score is pretty lovely. There's some nice moments, especially the first song from the score, which is the opening sequence of the movie. I love that bit of music. Then there's one called, I think it's called, hang on, one sec. I'll show you something. Oh. I was going to make a YouTube video and then I got sidetracked with work, but I'm going to go through all of this in a video. So there's all the albums. So let's find the one you're talking about. Yellow Submarine, it's there in here somewhere. Here it is. That's your cover. And let's see, what are the songs on it? There's Yellow Submarine, which my daughter loves. Only a Northern song, that's a cool one. All Together Now, if you like old British style sing-alongs. Hey Bulldog, that's a killer riff. I think the Foo Fighters did a cover of that, or Dave Grohl did at some point. It's All Too Much, like some psychedelia, and All You Need Is Love. I mean, that is a cool song. And then that's the score. So Pepperland is the track I really like. And these are all Australian prints. I think when I first moved here, there was someone selling all these albums for a very reasonable price. And they're all good quality vinyls. But they didn't have these. And these, I used to listen to this all the time at my uncle's house. These, what they call the blue and the red albums. That's such a cool picture, man. Look at that. I'll save that for the video, but that's some of my treasures, which I'll probably give to my daughter when she reaches an older age. Yesterday, watched Amit Datani was playing a telly. Man, he sounds great on anything. Seen him plug into a stranger and sound wicked good. Um, what's the way to come up with good guitar parts over a song is to listen a lot to what's going on. And then you have to think about what can I do that will make this better and not take away from it. And then, of course, are the technicalities like what kind of a sound am I going to go for? Um, how much space am I occupying in the mix? Um, what's my rhythmic contribution? Like if there's a lot of 16th note stuff, I'm not going to be playing 16th note stuff. I'm going to be playing like slow. And conversely, if there are like long notes, then I may get a little, choppier on top of that. So contrast is sometimes nice. Um, you're just trying to fit in and contribute something meaningful without taking away from the song. Um, how often do I have gigs in New Zealand? Sometimes this time of the year, a lot more. Um, I just did a couple this week, and I mean they could range from being like a proper corporate gig kind of thing to being like down at the pub playing a few songs with my mates. Um, there's like a bunch of different things here, so you kind of just have to, you know, and I guess over time it'll only get better in terms of meeting different people and stuff like that. Hats off for the Golden Collection. Love the title track, and of course, All You Need Is Love. Yeah, man, that's such a cool song. If in case you haven't seen it, Monty Python they did a brilliant piss take on the Beatles called the Rattles. I think it's there on YouTube. The movie's called All You Need Is Cash. And they do a mistake of that song of All You Need Is Love, and that recording, that iconic recording which was beamed live to millions of people or whatever. uh, and they call the song Love Life. And then they go in the end, uh, love is the meaning of life, life is the meaning of love, or something like that. um, and the guitar solo, that is the funniest part in the whole song. George's guitar solo on that, apparently like he made a mistake somewhere at the end and they just faded it out or something. So watch this guitar solo, it's it's just so well done. So in case you're a big Beatles fan and you haven't seen the Rattles, that will be like a good way to spend an hour sometime. um have I missed anyone's questions? uh, 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 uh. I think I pretty much got most of these. In case I missed your question, I'm sorry. You can just pop it into the chat again, and I'll answer because I'm gonna wrap pretty soon. Ba, 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 ba. Maybe I'll play you some jammy stuff, and then call it a night. Let me see what do I have here in this folder. There'll be some practice stuff that I can jam over. Where is it? Here. Okay, let's see. Um, what were my favorite songs to play back from the Zero days? You're talking about Zero songs? Lucy was always a good opener. I kind of like that big, nice, big, fat riffs to sink your teeth into. Then Ayaya was the long guitar solo one, which is still a fun thing. Then Christmas in July was that, good fun. Um, but I kind of like some of the stuff which we never really played live. I'll tell you, there's a track called Her, which is really nice. I did a nice composed guitar solo with some harmonized thing at the end. I was listening to a lot of Brian May also at the time. So some of it went in. There's one called Dear Jesus. I think I should actually get around to doing that first album because that was never really released. I mean, we made like 200 copies and made it for our friends and whoever wanted to listen to it. It's called Albumed. But then that hook thing had some cool songs on it. Um, Spit Leaf and that sort of thing. Um, what else? I'm sure I'm forgetting. I mean, I don't really need to play PSP again for a long time, but that's cool. It was fun writing that song though. Um, I still completely look like a small cute teddy bear, I guess so, but I'm sure not one in like what's going on in my head. Have I heard Crosswinds? Sorry, from Calcutta. Yeah, the guitar player, what's his name? Tuki Vikramjit. He's a great guitar player. I think I heard him first on that Great Indian Rock compilation, and he was playing. I think with us. I forgot who it was. He was definitely on that album. And I heard a guitar solo he played. I was like, okay, this guy's cool. He's not just playing the usual pentatonic shit. He kind of knew his way around the fret. So yeah. He's a big Eric Johnson fan as well. I think he's got another first year Eric Johnson strat like me. Because when I got mine, he said I think I've got the same model from the first year, just 2005. Cool. Let me see if I can jam you out with some stuff. Oh fuck! I seem to have lost my pick again. This is very sad. I'll use a different pick. It'll make me play a little differently, but whatever. Fuck it. Let's see. This is some blues shuffle. Where is... was a bit of a challenge. Like I went up high. I was like, oh fuck. I need to have the guitar on the other lap, and then you can play the higher frets properly. So if you ever play a Les Paul and you put it on this lap, and you're used to playing a Strat or something, fuck, it's a bit of a mission. Let me find something, a nice slow blues or something, and then I can say Alvida. Ah, this is nice. Lovely. C minor blues. Actually, just give me 1 sec. I need to do something. I need to plug straight into the amp because it sounds a bit stupid, but when you have some extra cable from the pedal going into the amp, it kind of makes the thing drag a little bit. It doesn't respond as now it'll respond a lot more tightly. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the start if you don't mind. Let's put the Jimmy Page lick. Now we're in the in-between position. See a bit more of the bridge pickup. gets pretty sensitive, right? When you have that bridge pickup cranked. I think you can just blink and here's the thing as well. You want to see how responsive a plugin or a modeler is. Put on a somewhat crunchy sound like this, and take your pick and just tap the string and see how soft you can go. Just try to make the softest sound with your pick on the strings, and see if you can get a good definition on that. Because the cheaper ones will, once your guitar signal goes down beyond a certain point, it just, it gets really murky and stuff like that. So for me, it has to go down all the way to like, because if it doesn't, I can feel it and that drives me nuts. So which is why when I say I still use the real amps, because they feel better and stuff, that's kind of what I'm talking about. I mean, if you're playing like and like pounding the guitar all the time and stuff like that, and you're not really bothered about how lightly you can pick, then fuck it, you can get by with the modulo, especially the good ones. They'll do that sound just fine. But if you are kind of relying on the amp to give you a difference between, I'll kill the delay, and there's a huge difference in signal, how hard that hits the amp. So that's my tip for the day on working with modelers. See if that works for you. Cool. Thank you for listening. I'll just answer the last question. What do I put on effects? Is there a particular order? No, they're all in parallel usually. They're all parallel processes. So I'd add the delay in parallel, the reverb in parallel, and the modulation in parallel. So they don't really feed each other usually. I can choose to. I can put the delay into reverb as well, but I don't. So yeah, they all. So if you're in a DAW, you'd use the aux tracks. So you'd make like aux tracks with the reverb 100% all the way wet, the delay all the way wet, and the modulation all the way wet, and then you just feed signal via the sends into those, and you can buy that, adjust the mix. Cool. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next week, and maybe I'll put out that video of the Beatles albums. Till then, is GarageBand a good DAW to start with? Yeah, if you don't want to spend any money, that's a good option. Another good one is Reaper. That's pretty cheap. I think $50 or something. So worth looking into, and way more functional than GarageBand. So thank you for your questions. Man, just as I say bye, there's another one that pops up. I'll answer that. Otherwise, you'll feel sad. When I'm mixing, do I exclusively use UAD stuff? No, I've got the Valhalla stuff, the Soundrise stuff, FabFilter, and then all the stuff from Cubase only. So that's kind of a good representation. And then of course my hardware, reverbs and delays usually is what I use while mixing. Cool. Thank you for your questions, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye bye.